touched. $9 million a year, not touched. You could plant a few trees for $1 million, that's for sure, Honourable Speaker. So these are just some of the priorities. The liquidation sale of government assets, $700 million, yet they haven't even identified the parcels of land. They haven't consulted with First Nations, so we don't know if that $700 million is real or not. And that's what the government is depending on for their balanced budget. And that's voodoo economics. They're counting $700 million, they're stripping the cupboards bare, and they haven't even consulted with First Nations because they haven't even targeted the pieces of real estate and other properties they're looking at. I want to finish off, Honourable Speaker, with the BC Progress Board report, their last report in December, that showed that this government's got a worse record on the economy, on personal income, and on jobs over the last 10 years.
Thank you, member.
For their trust as financial managers is nowhere to be found. Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, for letting me respond to the budget.
And I recognize the Minister for Community, Sport and Culture.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I too rise in my place today to represent the constituents of Outback Gordon Head and to respond to the budget speech, and I don't think...
And that's another thing. If people don't start stepping up to the plate, stop feeling for, they have to stop feeling sorry for themselves.
I think it's important.
Obviously I'm talking to the have-nots here right now at this point, right? We, the have-nots, we do have to stop feeling sorry for ourselves, because if we don't do that and come together as a collective, under a banner of unity, okay, we won't even use the trademark name, just under a banner of unity, people that make the decisions for us, based on their interests, will always leave us in the fray. And we will grovel for pennies and old bread. And we will, run and scurry for crumbs as it's being tossed to us as, the concave of Hummers drive by with their entitlement, that we are insignificant to their wealth building. So, we need to build our own wealth and contribute equally and fairly towards a solution. And, that's another hurdle that I've had with this nonprofit, is to try and educate, poorer people that they need to, they need to take responsibility for their environment and not expect people like me as a community activist just to come in and entertain their kids for free, be like a free daycare, right? If we're talking about like building in children's programs, into complex buildings and that type of thing. Now, this doesn't take away the fact that, the corporation or the landlord or whoever is managing those sites don't have a sense of responsibility to the environments that they're providing for these families. But at the end of the day, the families themselves need to step up to the plate and be a part of the solution. And the only way that's going to happen is if they start to change their thinking and stop depending on that entitlement mentality to get them through life. I'm not saying that we shouldn't rely on social service safety nets when needed, right? But what we don't want is to get entrapped by them. And oftentimes politics will entrap us into that. We're a consumer, we're a consumer based, we're money in the bank for the government because, we pay our sales and service tax, every time we buy something. And so, we pay our fees, and, at the end of the day, even though we might not be paying taxes, we're still paying taxes every time, we go buy something at the corner store, right? So, but at the end of the day, though, our society has been engineered to keep that lower class so that, the middle class and the upper class can thrive. So for us people that are in poverty, the only way we're going to break out of that is if we stop thinking that we're entitled to have everything given to us, and we need to find ways to start investing into our communities that open up more opportunities for those around us without
That is
jealousy
why we did see debt management plans,
interfering
debt
with that
management
process, because
objectives and
obviously,
targets that were brought in. And
you
I
know,
heard
if you
the-
got
one of
100
the
people
members, opposite
and 100
saying
people
that,
make an
that
investment,
they didn't miss those targets,
for
but
100 people
he
to get
would do,
100 jobs
himself,
would be
service
impossible.
if he were to
But
come
out of
back,
100
as
people,
would other
if
members
100
of the
people made an
NDP to go
investment,
back and take
you
a
know,
look
2 to
at
5
the
people
debt
might get a
management
job.
plan. The
And
first
that's
time it
where
was
the other
introduced, it was
95%
brought in because, to be
needs
quite
to
frank,
see that for
to
what
their
it
credit,
is
it was the first time
and go
a
for the
debt
next,
management plan had actually
you
been
know,
introduced
step on
in
the
a
ladder
long
so that
time.
we can get
And
5
so the
more
NDP
to the
actually
point
even
where,
got some kudos for
you know,
that.
all
But
100
that was
can
immediately
work themselves
eroded
out of that
because
situation
right after that was
that,
introduced,
you know,
it was
puts them
not
into
maintained.
a rut,
The target
right?
was missed. So the next
So,
year,
you know,
they renamed it with new targets.
yeah, I've had
They did that
families,
again
you know,
and
have their kids
again
come out and
again.
participate in
And
things
what
that I've
that
done,
said
regardless
to
of their
those
race.
bond rating agencies,
You know, it's
what it
not race
said to those
related.
credit
It's the
agencies
entitlement
was,
mentality, it's the
"We
poverty of the
don't
mind
know
that's fueling
what that
fueling
government is
fueling
up
what's
to.
going on in
We
our
don't
communities,
have any
and
certainty
you know,
whether they have any plan
they just have
whatsoever
they
on
feel
how
no
they are
need
spending."
to contribute
And
financially
it's for that reason
towards the
that
initiative
credit ratings
because they
fell.
assume
And what
that
we
first of
then
all they're
ended up
entitled for their
was
kids
more
to
debt
have that because
servicing
they're
costs.
poor.
The cost
Never
of
mind
borrowing
that the one that was
increased.
providing the
Now
services to
remember,
them was just as
remember we
poor,
said
if
if you
not
put all
poor.
that debt service in one
Okay,
ministry, I think it
so
would be the
you know.
second
How we're going to
third
break
largest
that
ministry in all of
barrier, I don't
government.
know, because
$2.7
it's systemic. You know, we live in a failing society where
$7 million
everybody, it doesn't matter
a
if
day
they're
in
rich or
debt
poor, but
servicing
everybody in our freaking
Huge
society
amount
feels that they're
being
entitled
wasted
to,
that way.
you know, a free
But
fucking ride,
I couldn't
one way or
accept
another.
that.
You know, I've
If
seen it
those
come from rich
dollars
people, and I've seen it
could
come
be
from poor
attributed
people. So maybe I'm not explaining this very well,
tangible-
right? You know, maybe
tangible
one day I'll
assets
be able to
and the
put it
building of a province
you know,
in such a
better
way that
form
everybody
so that it
could
comes out
apply.
better. But
But there was very little
something to think about.
look at. There was very little that we could grasp our hands around, except the fast ferries. That was about the only real tangible asset that I can see where spending was for where debt was incurred. And in those 10 years, where we didn't see an awful lot of assets, what we did see was a doubling of the debt. And I've heard members opposite talk about the debt rising, and I will acknowledge there has been debt that has risen under our term of office. But you have also seen a huge, huge investment, significant, tangible investments in communities throughout the province. One of the first, I might add, one of the first largest projects that we undertook was in a part of the province that had been neglected. A part of the province that we as government did not even had representation in terms of an MLA. That was the Kicking Horse Canyon. Did I see the NDP invest any dollars there? A natural gateway from the Alberta border through to British Columbia, where it would be easier for people to travel and have that extra rubber road traffic for tourism. There was no investment there. They did talk about, I remember, seismic upgrading schools, but they had no plan. No plan. The NDP had no plan to do that seismic upgrade. We introduced a 15-year plan and a $1.5 billion investment. And I can say, under our watch, Honorable Speaker, in my riding of Oak Bay Gordon Head, I have seen high schools upgraded. Mount Doug, my former high school, was seismically upgraded. Willows Elementary, Monterey, Gordon Head Middle School, just to name a few. And soon to have a brand new high school in Oak Bay, one that has been bursting at the seams, one that throughout the years we thought we would have to just patch up and find ways to make sure the safety concerns were addressed, but we are going to see a new high school. And I'm grateful to the Minister of Education, not only the current Minister of Education, but the previous ones who have been on top of this, who have listened and made sure that working with the school District 61, Greater Victoria School District, we're going to see a brand new, needed high school in my area. In addition to two high schools that I might add will be in the members for Juan de Fuca's area, much needed as well. And that is why when we do see a rise in debt, that we actually can attribute it to real, tangible assets. We've spent money in healthcare. The Royal Jubilee Hospital, I believe the oldest hospital in all of British Columbia until its recent upgrade or expansion, the patient tower. And the then Minister of Health, who is now the Minister of Education, from Shuchua, again, was there to herald through that important investment. And it is not just a brand new expanded 500-bed patient care tower. It is state of the art. It is one that is focused on the best care possible for seniors, and it is one that has won awards around the world, and where people have come to take a very close look, because it is a model for the kind of healthcare facility that can and should be built going forward. And I say that, Honourable Speaker, because I think it's important that it's not just about repairing and maintaining at times. It is about taking that opportunity when it is presented to you, when you need to make an expansion or a change or a renovation, that you take a look at the new innovation of the day, you take a look at the new green technologies that could be incorporated and put those in place. I can also say that the expansion of the emergency department at the Victoria General Hospital here in the Greater Victoria area is not in my area, but this entire region is dependent on that. And that emergency department was expanded and a welcomed addition to this area. Honourable Speaker, I want to as well talk a little bit about the industries that are currently facing some difficulty. And it has been mentioned that forestry had undergone through some very, very difficult times in the 90s. But things are changing because we have a forest minister and successive forest ministers who have taken the time to understand where the markets are, what the demands will be, and how we're going to be able to capitalize on that. And while it may have been in the past a relationship that we had with the United States where they acquired the majority of our lumber, that is no longer the case. When their economy slumped, when their economy took a huge, huge drop, they weren't looking north to us. They weren't looking to British Columbia to put any dollars in. And perhaps other governments would have just sat and just waited out. But that's not what we did. Aggressively, consistently, our forest ministers went into a market, into the Asian market, to say, we are here, we have a supply, and if you wish, you have a demand, we can find a relationship, we can work on a partnership that will work well for both countries. We've seen in the past the mining industry also faltered, but we're hearing that the mining exploration has increased. We're seeing mines looking to reopen. And that's also good news because the mining industry has very high-paying jobs. I've heard talk about the agriculture industry as well. And that too went through a very difficult period of time, not necessarily as a result of any policies, I would say, that governments had been involved in, but in particular when it came to the beef industry, the cattle industry. I think sometimes it's all too easy to forget what BSE did. When something like BSE happens, it doesn't just happen for a year. It is much more long-lasting. During our reign of office, we also saw the avian flu hit this province. That's the poultry industry. So another significant challenge that we had to deal with. Of course, we all remember what SARS did to our tourism industry. So what I'm trying to say, Honourable Speaker, is that in the last number of years, since we have been government and members refer to, sometimes it's easy to forget all the challenges that this government was faced with. But the ability, because of, I would credit a lot of this to good leadership, but as well to the very dedicated professional staff that ministers and ministries have, who found a way through to a solution that would get us beyond the problem. So while we were faced with those kinds of challenges, and again, I recall the